What is up, folks? We are back for a very special interview here at the OTK Expo. The one, the only, Asmongold. Thank you so much for doing this. You're a very freaking busy guy, I have to imagine.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't think I was actually going to meet you. Like, I thought it was going to be like over a video or something like that. Then I walked into the door and I'm like, there's the guy from Twitter. Wow, what is this? Yeah, it's good to meet you, man.
No, we appreciate you doing this. Obviously, very busy with this weekend, let alone all the stuff you got going on. Hit you with the fast fire questions about OTK Expo.
I'm chilling. Let's go.
You've seen a lot of games in your lifetime. Yeah. Is there any game in particular throughout this expo that you've seen that you're super excited for?
I feel like a lot of them I'm really excited for, like where they can go, especially because like whenever you look at an indie game, right, you're looking at a snapshot of like what that game is currently, but like many of these indie games are going to grow and flourish and evolve into something that's even better than what they already are. Like, for example, one of the games that we're showcasing is Wayfinder. I've been following Wayfinder for 6 months, and it's like kind of an online game. It has a lot of MMO elements to it. I am super excited to play that. I would have been playing it in the last beta, but it was NDA, or I would have.
And so when it comes to reviewing potentially hundreds, if not over 1,000 games, I think the general public would be interested to see, for someone like you, what really kind of piques your interest in a game nowadays?
I feel like, what do I really like in a game? I like very simple, fast, clean, responsive gameplay. I think that if a game is not responsive, if it feels like moving your character is like driving a car and your character isn't a car, then I'm going to have a problem with it. So like, for example, the movement in like the original PUBG or something like that was like kind of problematic. And so like whenever I see a game like that has such snappy, really good movement, like Vampire Survivors is an indie game, Valheim, or even like a larger game such as Fortnite, like games that just have like those incredibly really good responsive like controls. I think that's one of the most important things. And then also, like with a lot of games, it's a matter of scope. So I feel like many games now are narrowing down in their scope, and I think that's what indie games definitely allows people to do. Because, you know, like let's say you have a game that has like a very narrow scope, well, maybe you can't charge $70 for that, but the indie landscape now provides people the opportunity to make a game that has a narrow scope that does that extremely well, and that's it. And it's only $3. So I think that really being able to understand what you are is important, and equally as important to understanding what you're not.
And so you take a mind like yours with the experience that you have and many other minds, and now you put it behind the power of a publishing company with Mad Mushroom. What's the ultimate end goal, and why announce this now?
Publish the next big indie game, right? Publish the next Valheim, publish the next Vampire Survivors, publish the next, I don't know what it is, right? Like, help those games become a reality. Because, like, honestly, I think there's probably a handful of those games. Like, look at Among Us. Among Us was just chilling for like 6 months, like a year, right? Then Soda Poppin plays it on stream. Now it's the biggest game in the world. So it's like, how can we give that boost to somebody else? How can we enable somebody else to achieve that level of success? And also, you know, give our insight into what that level of success really means and how to make that happen.
And so when it comes for making a publishing company as opposed to directly making a game of your own,
I can't fucking program. Like, I'm going to be honest.
is that the main deciding point, or what's the difference maker there?
That's the big reason, right? I mean, to be honest, like I don't really understand programming. I'm not a game developer. And so like, I think that one of the biggest strengths with OTK is the fact that many of us do a lot of different things, and we respect that. We respect, you know, like let's say SFan loves sports, is super into sports. So is Nick. I'm not a big sports guy. So you know what I do? I massively support them doing sports. I don't try to do sports too, because that's what they're good at. That's what they do. And, you know, vice versa. I think they do the same thing with me with different stuff as well. So I think that the truth is with OTK, obviously, like it's kind of the same thing as like we've learned to let people do what they're good at. And I think that's why we are a publishing company, is that what are we good at? Well, we're obviously good at marketing. We're obviously good at bringing things to a large amount of people. So let's just do that and let the people who actually went to school for it and understand how to program do the programming.
Outside of OTK Expo, take us through like a regular day. How many hours a day are you actually sitting down, playing games, doing what you really love?
Well, it depends, right? So like I'll wake up in the morning. Usually I'll spend like an hour or two reading, well, sometimes your posts on Twitter, right? The different news of the day, what's happening, what's not happening, etc. And just kind of think about what I'm going to record. I'll usually get up, either I have some breakfast, which is obviously like 6 p.m. And, I'll decide whether I'm going to stream like right then, or like maybe in a couple of hours. I'll stream usually for, 4 to 10 hours. And then after that, I'll follow up with like different responsibilities that I have, different requirements that I have or requests on my time, etc. And then usually I'll probably be playing games either during that if I can, but usually I'll have to like focus on that entirely if it's something like an interview like this, etc. So then maybe I'll play a few hours of games and then watch something on Netflix or Crunchyroll and then go to bed and do the same thing the next day. Yeah.
Does it ever get tiring?
No.
Not at all?
No. Like I mean doing events, so I'm kind of like a socially I would not say I'm socially awkward. I wouldn't even really say that I'm an introvert. I would say that I just like being at my house by myself with the door locked and sitting in my room with a blanket on playing video games in the dark. So, that is my natural habitat. So anytime that I am, let's say, in a recording studio in Los Angeles that I had to fly out for at 6:30 in the morning today, I'm a little bit of fish out of water. But other than that, I try to just, like that is taxing. Of course it is. But, it's a big event. There's a lot of pressure, of course. But other than that, the day-to-day routine, I used to get really stressed out, really burned out. I don't anymore.
And if you don't want to talk about this, we can just cut it right out.
Yeah.
But you've mentioned before, taking breaks, burnout. It's a common theme in the space. People dealing with anxiety, and this space is tough to be in. Internet is full of crazy things.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I think the internet is like you have people that are constantly trying to take shots at you, trying to like tear you down. You also have like the constant battle with yourself of like, am I doing the right job? Am I doing this? I'm sure you get that too sometimes. I think anybody does who wants to really like be as creative as they possibly can. And sometimes it's not from a place of toxicity, it's a place from self-improvement. And it's like, if I were to rate like how hard am I trying with my content right now, I would say I'm a 6. I think I can do a lot better. I could try a lot harder. And I think about that all the time. So like I think being honest with yourself is very important, but being cruel to yourself isn't. And I think that that's a distinction that a lot of content creators have a hard time moving between, because obviously like you're getting a lot of negative criticism, and negative criticism, you think about like whenever you read negative criticism, whose voice do you read it in? You read it in your own. So it's easier to internalize negative things like that. I think, at least this is my pseudo-psychology opinion of this, but I think it's very easy to internalize negative feedback and negative criticism and make that obviously just much more present in your mind.
When you're combating those kind of situations, like, is there advice you have for people who are going through potential burnout or, potential anxiety or just stress from the space in general? Do you go for a walk, sip on a pop? Like what's your advice to people out there?
I think that really it should be that like for me, figure out where that source of stress is really coming from, and then either remove that from your life or learn to accept it. Because like I used to get upset whenever chat would like get mad at me for something or disagree with me for something. And it's not like I don't get upset about that at all nowadays, but it's just more that I've learned to accept it. And I think that it's also changing your perspective on what you are. So for example, like I think that streaming is very interesting and content creation is very interesting dynamic, because I think there are times you should treat content creation as a job and times you should treat it as a hobby. And sometimes whenever you're dealing with the hard parts, it's important to treat it like a job. It's like, I'm doing this is what I do. And sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes it is hard, and you're just going to push through that and everything's going to be okay.
Let's take a step back away from the hard questions. Appreciate you answering those. Have you ever like taken a step back to realize where you are now? I mean, have you ever like taken a step back to the early days of maybe when you first started gaming to sit back and be like, okay, you have your own org, merch, your own talent agency, your own gaming expo. The list goes on and on and on of what you've already accomplished. Have you ever had the chance to like?
I mean, like 10 years ago, I would just be like, yeah, so I have all these achievements and wow, I'm pretty much a god, and so like, having a big ego, if anything, I think streaming has lowered my ego. Streaming has made me feel a lot more humble about it, because at the end of the day, I have had a lot of good accomplishments. I've done a lot of things that are great, and I'm really proud of those things. But at the end of the day, I'm just a guy, and you're just a guy, and we're just talking, and that's it. And so like, I don't ever really let that affect myself on a personal level and how I treat people or how I react to people or anything like that. So yeah, I think staying humble is definitely a good thing, and it's also a healthy thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people trust your opinion on this one. What's the best video game of all time?
Best video game of all time? I actually don't. I think that it really depends. Like if I were to say the best video, what is one game that I would recommend right now? Elden Ring. I would say Elden Ring. I would recommend the first half of Dark Souls 1, like up to Anor Londo and like beating Anor Londo. Like in my opinion, there is no gaming experience. There are gaming experiences that are as good as that, like Ocarina of Time, Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers 3, etc. But truth is, nothing is actually better than that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really great games out there, but it depends on like what you like playing. It's a little bit of a political answer, but I think the truth is that it really depends on your mood.
I've been waiting to ask you this next one for like a long
Yeah.
time. We got the chance to interview some of the top RuneScape creators
Uh-huh.
a few months back.
Oh boy.
So I got to just ask you, and I'm going to ask you why as well.
Yeah.
What's the better game, RuneScape or WoW, and why?
Well, I think that RuneScape went through the same like type of renaissance that WoW did with like classic WoW with like OSRS. So like you have kind of the same thing happening, and I'm actually going to be really curious to see what happens. Like obviously Wrath of the Lich King is kind of running its course, and that's like the end of the original trilogy of World of Warcraft. So what's going to happen after that? Are they going to take an OSRS route or not? The truth is, like, I think that OSRS is unmatched in the way that it values progression, and that somebody that did something 10 years ago can log back into the game and it still matter now. I think that's just something that is unmatched in RuneScape. I think obviously in terms of like responsiveness, like action gameplay, rating, World of Warcraft is the better game, right? Of course, but it doesn't mean that RuneScape isn't incredible in its own way. And also like being able to have like really high octane raids, that doesn't make a game better. Like it really depends on what you place value in and what you care about. So I think that RuneScape just has such a massive tenure. It's been around since, like I think the 90s or something like that. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a time that RuneScape ends up really ever dying, because it just has such a diehard audience of people. But I could say the same thing about WoW as well.
Winding down, only got a couple more ones left for you. This is obviously big in the news as of late, ironically timed with the Expo. Twitch having their branded content policy
That was
update.
cute, wasn't it?
It was obviously a widely talked about topic and something very important to you, as you had announced that you would potentially even be leaving Twitch or at least fielding offers. So the question to you being, why was that such an important statement that you had to respond to and give your take on?
Well, I think I could easily say, I could explain why like sponsorships are important, and like how that's important, and like let's just cut to the chase, because I'd lose a lot of fucking money. So that's number one, right? Let's just get that out of the way. But then let's also talk about what it represents, because if you are a platform that's actively trying to, like you're rolling back this 70-30, you're doing 50-50 with everybody, you're not offering exclusive contracts to top performers anymore, and now you're also trying to take their sponsorships as well. Like this is something that is a pattern at this point, and it's very worrying, because if somebody's doing it 3 times and they do it a 4th time, of course there's going to be a number 5 too. So I think that at a certain point, whenever you see something is going in the wrong direction, it's better to hedge your bets and start going somewhere else. So I think that it does act as kind of an indicator of like a kind of like a vibe check with Twitch of like, what are they trying to do, what are they not trying to do. So I think there's a lot of reasons why, and also like I know that a lot of creators, they rely a lot on sponsorships, and the truth is that if you can't make money on a platform, you're probably not going to be there all day.
Last one for you, at least unless you have a couple, but I think it'd be really cool to have a message from you to any indie devs out there. Yeah. The future of the gaming space is gonna be wild when it comes to big devs versus indie devs, and what you guys do with Mad Mushroom, OTK, and of course you're gonna be playing the games. Right. Is there any message you would have for indie devs out there, trying to make what they love into an actual game, for inspiration?
Well, I mean, I think that the first thing is to just go out there and, make what you love to make, because the odds are, even if it's something that you think only like 1 in like 1,000 people will understand, think about how many billion people are in the world. And you don't necessarily have to make the next mainstream game that's, God of War level attachment or people's like awareness of it. You don't have to make a game that's the right game for everybody. You just have to make a game that's the right game for a certain group of people, and making sure that you stay true to like what your vision of what the game is, and not compromise that in order to do something that you're uncomfortable with. I think that's the most important thing, is to stay true to yourself, develop a game that you feel like is fulfilling and meaningful, and that you have like a true vision on where it's going to go and how the game's going to evolve. Because I think that games that lack that, it's only a matter of time until the players realize it.
Asmon, I can't thank you enough for the time. I really appreciate the interview, and best of luck with the Expo.
Thank you very much.